Hello ladies and gentlemen, Dr. David Kuchar here, also known as David Gold, coming to you from my clinic here in Pharr, Texas. I wanted to present some things to you here about the Zodiac Killer, a man that I knew 44 years ago in Mexico City. I didn't know who he was at the time. This is about Donna Lass. God rest. Haven't found her body yet, and the killer told me where he buried her. So I'm going to show you on the Pines card what he told me. By the time you see this, I will have already reported it to the FBI if they're interested in listening to it. If not, then it'll be strictly on YouTube and in my book that I'm writing on this killer, who was Frank Morris, the escapee from Alcatraz. This killer was actually a triad of three people: Frank Morris, John Anglin, and Clarence Anglin, the escapees from Alcatraz. I hope this video and my information will help the FBI to find the body of Donna Lass, to give some closure to her family. Bless you all. This is a picture of Donna Lass. She went missing September the 6th, 1970. Presumed murdered by the Zodiac Killer, but nothing was ever proven. Now this is a picture, what they call the Pines card. This is where Donna Lass was supposed to have disappeared from on September the 6th, 1970, from the Sahara Tahoe Hotel, now known as the Horizon Casino. But this is the Pines card that was sent to the press by the Zodiac Killer on 3/22/71, 6 months after Donna Lass's disappearance. Now, this is what the killer told me about this card and about where he buried Donna Lass. He explained to me, first of all, that this is a place that he punched a hole in the card. He said the reason was because he tried to figure out all kinds of different clues to put to tell people where that position was, and he couldn't come up with anything, and he decided that since what had actually happened there was that they did a seance, and he decided that since seances were not of this world, the best clue that he could give would be to punch a hole in the card. That way there would be nothing there. And I think he said something about the empty set. Phi, I believe it is, the empty set in math, that there's nothing there. And what actually happens is they find out that that's an area where they have found some stones in the form of a cross and everything. He said he did a seance there. He told me that, very gingerly told me, and kind of in code, that there was a girl there at the seance and she had accidentally cut herself, and that before they could get help for her she bled to death, and that they had to bury her. And he said that they buried her there on the grounds. And he asked me, where do I think she would be buried? And I said, I don't know, but there's a man right there digging. And here comes a couple of other guys with shovels. And he said, you're right. He said, but that's not where she's buried. And I said, well, why not? Why'd you put the guy there? He said, because it's only logical that if he dug a hole there, anyone who's staying over here in this hotel would see him digging the grave. So I says, well then, how are you supposed to know where it's at, and why did you make it in code in the first place? And he goes, well, because I didn't want everybody to know. You know, it was an accident. We did, you know, and she was gone. So, well, he was lying. He murdered her. But then he told me, he said, well, what do you see over here? And I said, he said, what does that say? And I says, it says around in the snow. And he says, Does that make sense to you? And I said, I don't know, it sounds like something's missing. He goes, there's something missing. What would make it sound more like something you've heard before? And I said, well, like around back in the snow or around front in the snow. And he says, around back in the snow. That's right. And he said that sentence is upside down. So if you take it out of there and you turn it over the way it's supposed to be, and turn it over right where it's at, you will see that it ends right here where this guy's back is at. He goes, now around back in the snow, and there's a man digging. And I asked him, what do you mean by around back? And there's a lot of buildings there. It could be around back of anywhere. And he goes, well, there's only one place you can be around back of, digging a hole to bury somebody and not get seen. And I go, why is that? And he goes, well, this is a hotel. There's people in it. You can't dig behind there because people could see you. And he said, this, and I said, what is this? And he said, that's a warehouse. And he goes, there is where you could go behind there and dig a hole and no one would see you. And I go, okay, so what is the peek through the pines? And he goes, very good, that's another clue. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, you have to walk around behind this building and there's some trees back there. And he said, there's a grave site there. And I go, well, can you explain to me? I mean, just peek through the pines, there could be a lot of trees. And he goes, well, you just have to go. There's 2 trees. You look through, you'll see there's an area, there's a place. It's an area where there's a spot. He really wouldn't be clear. And then I tried to get him to be clear, and he said, that's all I'm going to tell you. And that's what the killer himself, Frank Morris, the Zodiac killer, told me about where Donna Lass is buried. That information has been turned over to the FBI. This is a picture of a card that was sent to Donna Lass' sister, Mary Pilker. This was sent in 1974. This was sent a couple of years after the Zodiac had showed me the Pines card. Now, when he showed me the Pines card, the next day he pulled this card out and showed it to me and said, I want to show you this card, but I don't want you to touch it, because I haven't sent this yet. And he said, the reason I sent this to her sister is because this is what it looks like back there where I told you the pines were, where you have to peek through the pines behind that building. And he alluded to the fact that she was buried around in here somewhere, and I think it was there, maybe here. I don't know, maybe that'll come back to me. But he said this resembled it quite a bit. Now, to me, there's really, really big significance in this card, because he told me, don't touch this card because I haven't sent it yet. And I touched it. I didn't think it was important. I touched it right here. And he said, no, I told you not to touch that. You're going to leave your fingerprint on there. And then the next day I came back to his house, and he said, you know what? Take a look at this card again. He said, I want you to take a look at it. I've thought about it. You can go ahead and touch it. You're young. No one has your fingerprints on file anywhere, and probably won't matter anyway. But the day before, he told me he didn't want me to touch it because it might cause me problems later on in life. So I held it. I touched it. Wherever this card is at, whichever police department has it, and I will get around to going and trying to talk to them. It's very difficult because there's so many amateur sleuths out there going to the police and telling them they've solved the case. They don't want to talk to anybody. But anyway, I want to talk to them because my DNA is on this card. My fingerprints are all over that card. That, if I can get my hands on that, I can prove to you that I actually sat down with this killer and held this card in my hand. Again, this is a picture of Donna Lass. God rest her soul. I hope we get to find her grave site so that we can give closure to her family. That's my biggest goal in this entire Zodiac thing. Just a couple of little things I want to leave you with here. Some other murders, they've been called the Nightingale Murders. Those murders involved a couple of nurses and a court reporter. Judith Akari, Nancy Benelak, Carol Beth Hilburn. And the Zodiac killer told me a story about those girls. He gave me their names. I'm going to go ahead and put it down here. Just so you have something to look at. I'm not a very good writer, but I'm a doctor. I'm not supposed to write pretty. He told me these names. He described them. Recently, I've looked up their pictures on the internet. Made it look like they were his girlfriends. This is another movie this is another video that I'm gonna make for you. He made it look like they were his girlfriends, and I'll tell you more about it in the video. But what I wanted you to see is this picture of the suspects in the case of the Bennellat killing. It says here, these are police drawings of one suspect in the Bennellat killing on the left and two suspects in the Hikari murder on the right. Some people think it's Ted Kaczynski, but I'm here to tell you that all three of those people were the murderers. That's Frank Morris, that's Clarence Anglin, and that's John Anglin with a beard. The escapees from Alcatraz, that's the Zodiac killer. They're all the Zodiac killer because it's a triad. He told me that. Now, I want you to take a close look at these guys and look at this picture of Dan Cooper. Let me see if I can get him in here where you can get a look at him. Specifically and especially the mouth and the lips. And the mouth and the lips. Doesn't that match that? Okay? And here's another picture I want you to look at. It's a drawing of, it's a police drawing of witnesses' account of one of the suspects in one of the Zodiac killings. This is the one that everybody thinks is Arthur Lee Allen, but doesn't look anything like him. Look at that mouth. Look at that mouth and those lips, and look at that one. So remember, these are all police sketches based on what witnesses told the police, the witnesses who saw these people near the murders. Now, the reason I think that the lips are so characteristic is because Frank Morris had a very characteristic mouth. And that upper lip, which in some cases is called a brooding lip, okay, has significance. I'm going to tell you what it is. But first of all, that's the one thing I remember more about this man that I knew in Mexico City who looked exactly like this picture, is that mouth, pursed lips. And when he was ready to kill you, he would really purse that up tight, and this upper lip would poke out. I think about several times that he pulled a gun on me and a knife, and how he pursed those lips. I should have punched him in the mouth. But anyway, this is your Zodiac Triad right here. Frank Morris, Clarence Anglin, and John Anglin. I'm going to make another video on these Nightingale murders to help you understand that, but that's later on. And there's poor Donna Lass. God rest her soul. We're going to find you, Donna, for your family.